Translation on this one. It's going to be important for understanding the meaning of the parable. But the parable, at least as it comes to me, is better to be... Oh, now, is that the pastor's wife? Is she out there? I think it is.
Do you want me to tell them to be quiet?
No, don't tell her to be quiet.
Okay, you're
No, you can. I'm just taking notes. Verse number 9. Better to be lowly and have a servant than to play the great man and lack bread. All right, what is going on there? Most of the English translations translate it this way: better to be lowly and have a servant than to play the great man and lack bread. We got to work on that first line there. Better be lowly and have a servant. Actually, I checked both the Hebrew and the Greek on this, and the Hebrew is challenging to translate. And I'm not sure why they made the decision to translate it this way. For the most part, all English translations reflect this. The Greek is easier to translate, as is typical, because Greek is easier to translate than Hebrew. The sense, though, both of the Hebrew, this is allowed in the Hebrew and of the Greek, would have the first line reading like this: better to be lowly, and let me make sure I got it right. Better to be lowly, serving. Better to be a lowly man serving himself than to play the great man and lack bread. That's actually legitimate in the Hebrew, but it's very clear in the Greek that's what it says. So then that first line, the sense is better to be lowly, or atimeia. That means without honor, despised, lowly, insulted. Better to not look grand or honorable, but better to simply be a humble person, serving yourself, working for yourself, not having a servant, but serving yourself, working. Then to play the great man. Actually, the word play here is to dress up. That's the sense of this verb, to dress up like a timeia, not atime, but without the negation, as an honorable one, to play, to put on the clothing of an honorable man, and to lack bread, to be hungry. So what's happening here? One summary that I read said it this way: that respectful mediocrity is better than boastful poverty. The parable's pushing on a couple different things, it looks like to me. One, how you look to people. And number two, how you're actually doing. Okay. So on the one hand, the way you look to people might be honorable and grand, people speak well of you. Or you might be insulted as being a fool, you're lowly, silly looking. On the one hand, that has nothing to do, apparently, according to this parable, with how well you're doing. You can be a humble person who just quietly continues to work for yourself, provide for yourself, according to the Lord's providence, of course, but that works humbly. What the parable ultimately, though, is pushing is a question, and you have two options on the question, it seems to me. Your first option would be, would you rather be a man who looks dumb, lowly, without honor, people laugh at, they say, well, if he doesn't know what he's doing or something. You're insulted, but you're doing just fine. Doesn't look like you are, maybe, but you're doing just fine. The Lord provides for you work, a humble life. You have everything you need, but people mock you. Or would you rather be that person? Or, it's an honest question, or would you like people to sing your praises, to think of you as strong, wise, resourceful? Oh, he really figured out how to get that done. Can you? And you have actually nothing to show for it. You lack bread. You've got nothing. Okay? Which would you rather be? Now, of course, you'd rather be the person who is doing just fine and everybody loves. But that's not what this is pushing. It's pushing at what do you love more? Do you love just simply living a humble life where you have your daily bread and a little bit of wine and you work your job? Or do you care more about what people think about you? Now, you all will answer what? You're all profoundly humble people, and so you'll say, "Oh, I don't need the people's praises, for heaven's sake. I don't need people to think highly of me. No, that just as long as I have a nice life. I don't care about other people's opinions." And I don't believe you, because I've got a pretty good idea of what you pay for your clothes and your makeup and the things that you work hard to look good, and how invested we are in our reputation. I think most of the time we are stressed out about, I'm just confessing, not about losing things, but about people looking at me and thinking I'm dumb. I mean, we just have a profoundly acute sense of the opinions of other people. And Solomon is saying what? Like if you got a choice, it's far better to have everybody in the world think you're dumb. But God doesn't, and He provides you your daily bread. You work a hard job and you live a happy life, as opposed to having everybody's praises and having nothing. Okay, that's my sense of the particular proverb here. Questions on that or things to add, expand? Okay, Job chapter 2. Did we finish chapter 1? I think we did or got close. I do have an observation I want to make on Job chapter 1 before we press ahead to Job 2. At the end of chapter 1, we'd encountered Job having lost everything. We remember what he did. He did 4 things. He tore his robe, shaved his head, bowed down to the ground, and he worshiped the Lord. And I suggested last time that what we mean when we say he worshiped the Lord was that he said something to the Lord. I don't think the proskuna or the bowing down is his worship, although that's part of it. But the main way that he worships the Lord is by what he says next. He blesses the Lord. Naked I came from my mother's womb. Naked I shall return there. The Lord gives and the Lord is taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's exactly the opposite of what the devil had said he would do, which is curse the Lord. Here Job blesses the Lord. And then verse 22 says, through all this Job did not sin, nor did he blame God. Now, I made the point last time that what Job had just said, I come down to chapter 1, we're on 1 now. What Job had just said, the Lord gave, the Lord took away, that the Lord has taken away is rejected by a lot of trendy theologians. And many church bodies even, I think, would be very reluctant to adopt that statement of Job. They would gladly accept the statement that the Lord gives, but that the Lord takes away, in particular what he has taken away from Job, that Job has suffered theft, if somebody's stolen something from you, as somebody stole from Job, Job was a victim of theft by other countries and something, but all of his life's savings and belongings were stolen from him. Job said, not the Sabaeans stole them or the Chaldeans stole them, but God took them from me. And I just wonder if that would not sound strange, if you have ever had something stolen from you, somebody came to your garage or they took something that was sitting there and all of a sudden you looked over and it was gone. They took it from you. It was deliberate. I wonder if you're able to say, oh, the Lord took my tool or my phone or whatever it is. That's what Job says. The Lord took it away from me. A lot of Christians would say that's not right. Yeah, you can't say the Lord did that because stealing is a sin. And if Job says that the Lord stole those things or took them, of course, the Lord doesn't, anything he takes isn't stealing, but that was an evil activity. We're attributing to God something evil. We cannot say that about God. And they would say, I don't think you can adopt what Job says here. The Lord took it away. The devil took it away. Evil men took it away. No, Job then follows up by saying, in all these things, Job did not sin, nor did he blame God. So what Job just said is not a sin. Job, the author, Moses, whoever it is, affirms that what Job just said is the truth. Now, another thing, and I didn't say this last time, I wanted to just press it into your heart, just to seal this down, that Job did not sin. One of the things in which he did not sin was his activity after he lost all those things. Now, Job perfectly recognizes that God is the most important thing in the world, but when he lost all those things, he was profoundly grieved because of it. I can tell that he was profoundly grieved because of his actions. Look at what he did. He tore his clothes. Those are external actions that reflect that reflect his heart. He is terribly sad. I can't imagine he's not weeping and weeping and weeping at the loss of his children and all of his life's belongings. He shaves his head, falls to the ground. Would you want to be able to say to Job, now, Job, it's time to get some perspective. You understand that this life is very short, and what's most important is God, and after all, those things were given to you by God, and they were going to be taken away eventually anyway, and therefore it would be wrong for you to be sad. It's somehow, I don't think people will usually say this, but they'll imply it, that it would somehow be sinful to be sad or to have grief. You'll find people that have this kind of well-meaning disposition. Sometimes some of you might have even been the victim of it, and that's fine, I think. Just you don't want to fall prey to it. Where people will say to you, or, oh, how about this one? How about this one? After you die, your family or something, or maybe even you make arrangements to have one of these sort of cheesy little cards that get handed out at your funeral that says something like, I've gone away, don't be sad, I'm in heaven now, I'm with Jesus, so don't cry. As if it's helpful to your loved ones after you leave to tell them, don't be sad that I'm gone because I'm in a better place now. Or for us ever to say to somebody who's grieving the loss of somebody, well, come on, don't you know, I mean, he's in heaven. If it's way, way, way better now for him, what are you also sad about? If you had more faith and trusted it, you'd be happy. It'd be a happy day. That might be what's behind the silliness, which is, and this just gets accepted. It needs to be pressed. So if you've ever done this, I don't want you to feel bad about it. I just think from now on, you should resist in the funerals for your family or something. Resist this idea that a funeral is a celebration ever. It is a celebration in a very meaningless sense. A funeral can be a very joyful thing. It is fine. We're happy for him. He's in heaven. But the point of a funeral is not to celebrate. Right? The point is to, like Solomon said, there's always a time to celebrate. But for goodness sake, there is a time to grieve. If ever there was a time to grieve, it ought to be a funeral. The idea that a funeral should be a celebration is an attempt to preach to people that grieving is wrong. That's what I think. So I think that funeral should be called a grieving of death, not a celebration of life. Now, all Christians understand how it is that we can be both joyful and sad at the same time, but funerals are for sadness. Can we just say that? And what Job is saying here is, what the narrative is saying, verse 22, Job did not sin. So when he tore his clothes, when he poured out his heart, he was not sinning when he did that. We see this today. This manifests itself in the. When I was in college, I was taught that, and this has changed now, and I think it's changed 2 or 3 times because that's what psychologists do. They keep themselves employed by changing their they're kind of categories. When I was in college, the DSM-3 said homosexuality was a mental disease. And now it's turned into something that's to be celebrated. So psychologists change all the time. But when I was in college, they said that they said that there were stages of grief. So when you lose somebody, you go through these different stages. And I can't remember what they are. Shock, and then anger is what's next. And the idea here is that you could work your way on through. So you like, hello, I'm in shock right now. Well, I guess that's my stage. Hopefully I get over that soon. Hello, I'm in anger now. It's okay, you're angry. You'll get past that. Pretty soon you're going to be, I don't know what the next stage is. And the idea is that this is the process of grief, and you start with shock, you work your way through these things so that you can what? Emerge at the end, and you don't have grief anymore. You see, grief is a mental disease that needs to be worked through, treated, and gotten rid of. And now I can be free. Now I can ask people, I can ask you, are you finally over that? See? No. And that is wrong. It's true. There can be shock, anger, denial, all those things. That can be kind of mixed around in there. I don't know if anybody experiences the stages, like they say, in that particular order. But the bigger point is, you should never be done with it, right? Grief is never actually, and that's because grief is not a sinful thing. It's actually, grief is a good thing. It's a good work. As far as I can tell, grief is the only good work that we have here in this life. That's a good work. Maybe there's others, but that's a good work here, but that we won't have in heaven. All the good works we have here, we continue to do them in heaven. Here, grief is a good work. It's God-pleasing to be sad for sad things. But in heaven, we won't have it anymore. I know, because he says he will wipe away all of our tears. So I wanted to make sure that stands out here before we get to chapter 2. Carol, did you have your hand? Yeah, Carol.
I don't disagree with you, Pastor, but I wanted to read this up that the unbelieving world is so fixated. The celebration seems to be the celebration of a person's life and bringing out all the good things about that person, as opposed to realizing that they're sinful beings and it's only they're good because of God, because by Jesus Christ. So I think there's so many, and it's crept into the church too, where you have the celebration of life too. So I just want to bring that point that so many people, if you think of any secular versus the religious, and there's a little different understanding.
Yeah, I think that's right. Since they don't have the life to come, to the present life and the life to come to rejoice in, they can only rejoice in that which is in the past. And that's really sad. And they don't want to be sad, and so I do though think it's to call it a celebration is an affront to what they've known for the Christian culture has taught them should be sad. They don't want to be sad. I don't want to be sad. And so you might, I don't know, maybe they should start labeling it a denial of. We're going to have a denial of feelings ceremony. You'll come on Saturday, and we'll celebrate. We'll put on a happy face because. But it's good. It's right to have tears and be sad. And Christians can do it too. I mean, that's my point, is that Christians especially do it. We embrace it. Let's keep going. Chapter 2. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. Let me pause. We don't know how much time, I don't think, elapses between chapter 1 and chapter 2. I don't think it's long, but that's just my sense of it. I don't have any evidence in the text that I can tell. Verse number 2, the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And then Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it." And the Lord said to Satan, so you notice he says the same thing he said before. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? I wish I'd have written it down. I can't remember the Greek word here. Have you considered my servant Job? Do you have a note on that? Mine has a little note. I wish I knew what it says. It's something like, have you set your sight? Have you looked at? Have you... Oh, well, darn. And the devil said, from where have you come? And the devil said, from wandering around from under heaven, and something, I don't know, Greek. And the Lord said to the devil, therefore, yeah, therapanti. Or is it well, now I don't know that word. I think prosekes is dwell upon, or have you set your sights upon Job? Did you look at him? It could be that. I'm sorry, I didn't write the Greek down, and I should have. Let's keep going. For there is no one like him on the earth. So once again, the devil does not bring Job up. Right? Who brings up Job? Who puts a target on his head? That's God who speaks of him. For there's, have you considered my servant? There's no one like him on earth. Again, same thing. He's blameless. Remember, again, blameless means perfect, without error, without what's the good? The thing always says with integrity, but I don't like that one. It's without kind of crookedness, but it means perfect. It means without any kind of sin. He does not have sin, and so we maintain, I do anyway, that this has to be a reflection of the grace of God forgiving Job's sins. He is blameless for the sake of his Redeemer. He is blameless, he's upright, he fears God. That means he trusts God, and he turns away from evil. And he still holds fast to his, and then the word integrity is the same root word as blameless up above. And I don't know why our translations do a different word. He holds fast to his righteousness, in other words. He has not, so the way that the translations translate this, which I think is misleading, he may just point it out to you. He still holds firm to his integrity. That sounds like what God is saying about Job is, well, Job was tempted to sin, but he decided not to sin. He decided he would be a good person for me. And this is not, I don't think, a reflection of what God is saying. In fact, I would suggest to you that God is saying here, he holds fast to his status as blameless. He is not giving up. He is a Christian. He clings to the righteousness of Christ alone. He holds to his, he trusts me still. That's what he's holding fast to. Even though, continuing, even though you incited me against him to ruin him without cause. I'm fine with that translation. I think it's okay. But it's very, this is very out front. So God tells the devil, I'm just shocked that even this comes out of God's mouth. The devil is standing there, and God said, I do not like what you have done. You incited me against him, and there was no reason for it. At least what he tells the devil. There's no cause. What I take that to mean is, Job did not sin. He didn't do anything wrong. Nothing elicited this behavior of mine. The only reason I did it is because you came and challenged me. You incited me against him. Now, I trust that there is some ultimate good for Job, because at the end we're going to be told that there is some good. We're not told what it is, but that there is. But this is really, really strong. And it's also an affirmation here that it's not just the devil that acted against Job, but it is God himself who is acting here. In fact, mainly God himself. Okay, let's keep going. Again, maybe so that we don't pass this by, that is an accurate translation. Without cause, there at the end of verse 3. Without cause. That means there was nothing in Job's life or behavior that made me do this. And that is important to note because the whole rest of the book, starting at chapter 3, will be a diatribe, or much of the rest of the book, will be a diatribe by Job's three friends who want to insist what? You're suffering for a cause. You did something. And God himself says, no cause. There's no cause. That's really precious. Okay, verse 4. Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has he'll give for his life. However, put forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. Okay. Satan says skin for skin. I don't know what that means. You all have heard it before, I know that, skin for skin. But what does it mean? I'm not sure. I think I've said it 1,000 times, but I'm not positive I even know what it means. I can give you a guess, but as soon as I give you a guess of what it means, 4 other commentaries are going to give you a different guess. It must mean something in the original context. I'm sure Job isn't just saying words, or the devil, sorry. But I'm not positive what the force of it is, but I'll give you what my guess is. My guess is that the devil is now turning back to chapter 1 and mocking how easy that must have been for Job. That's what I think is happening. Oh, that first round? Easy. It's not a big deal. Job would happily give skin for his own skin. So Job, just okay, he has to lose what? His animals, his children. Maybe that's what's being referred to here as someone else's skin. So long as he can save his what? His own skin. And so if he had to trade, fine. We thought we were taking valuable things away from Job there, didn't we? But there is one thing more valuable to Job that we haven't touched yet. Something God loves more than he loves you.
His own body.
And that's his own body, his own life. Skin for skin. Let me touch his skin, his bones, and his flesh, and I'll get him then. I'll prove to God that Job does not love God above all things, that he loves physical comfort and relief and pain-free life. It says he'll curse you to your face. We've debated this. I'm still confused about it. I don't know why this is. The word there for curse is the literal Hebrew word for bless. He will surely bless you to your face is what it says. I thought for a while, and Keegan, you and I were talking about this because I'd advanced this idea. I don't think I do anymore, that maybe this is Satan's mockery. Maybe he's saying, I'm sure he'll bless you. I thought it was maybe sarcasm by the devil. I bet he'll bless you. Let me take stuff away. Oh, I'm sure he'll bless you. Then he'll keep blessing you. I don't know if that's his tone here. And the reason I don't think so is because I looked more carefully at the wife's statement later. Remember where she says, well, you hold fast to your blamelessness, curse God and die. But she actually says what? Bless God and die. And I don't think she's being facetious like the devil or sarcastic. I think she actually does mean to curse him. We'll get to that in a little bit. So I don't know why that Hebrew is saying bless. But I do agree with the translations. It's certainly in the devil's mouth. His desire is for Job finally to curse God, to cease to thank him and bless him, and instead raise his fist to God, clenched, and say, what have you taken from me? Think I can worship you if you're going to treat me this way? He wants him to curse him or accuse God of wrongdoing. That's the devil's aim. Let me keep going. Verse 6, so the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand. That's the literal there. He's in your hand. only spare his life. Now, let me pause there. Did God grant the devil his request at this point? I know, I asked that so carefully. You're like, wait a minute. He did, didn't he? Did say that, Jane? Again?
Granted it with a condition
What was his request?
that he wouldn't
He said, can I touch his,
slaughter him or kill him.
can I reach out and touch his bone and flesh? But he'd earlier said a man will give anything for his life. Meaning, if there's anything a person, like you can take anything you want, but once you threaten a man with death, then he'll start negotiating. So I thought there that the devil was going to ask to kill Job. But God says you can't kill him. You can only harm his body as bad as you can make it, but you can't kill him. So my sense, though, is that for this request to be genuinely honored, God grants to the devil the authority to harm him to such an extent that Job concludes that he surely is going to die, and that he's just in the painful stages right before death, but then is not allowed to die. He has to live in the expectation he's going to die, but just lay and suffer instead. And so Job then, when he says his prayers, he must think that God is going to kill him. And he's taken his life from him. But that God doesn't intend to do that, but that's what he thinks. Are you tracking with me there? Yeah, Lois.
Just a thought. I don't think that you said, maybe I'm not following you correctly, but that if Satan actually thought I would take his life, he probably would have come up short there because he's not God and doesn't know that people will live forever. But then then Job wouldn't be able to curse to his face. So he wouldn't want to take Job's life, would he? I mean, then he wouldn't be able to say anything to God.
It'd be tough. It was always in a tricky spot. What Lois said is, the devil wouldn't want to take Job's life, would he? He'd want to preserve his life so that there would be occasion for Job to curse God. He's not going to curse him if he's dead. I think it's challenging to get into the devil's mind. It's tempting. I want to try to figure out what he's thinking. But I never quite know what his strategy is. I just can go by what it says. And he says a man will give anything in exchange for his life. And so let me kill him. Let me touch his flesh and bone so that he dies. And I'll make him curse. And I suspect that means before I kill him, I'm going to get him to a place where he will curse you for taking his life. And so the Lord grants it that he gets him to a place where Job thinks he's going to die. And then doesn't. I think that's what's happening here. It's my best shot at that, trying to understand
The
that.
devil wants him to curse God and then commit suicide.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe commit suicide. Maybe take his life. And Job does say, it'd be better if I was dead. It'd be better if I never, what? I was never even born. It's just so bad. Yeah. Okay, number 7. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, and he smote Job. That's what mine says. Smote. He punched him. The word there is he punched him. He hit him. Struck him. With what? With sore boils. No, that's sore. Do you get the Septuagint back up again on this one? Which verse? Is it? 7. And came the devil from the Lord and appeared to Job and struck him with ponero from the foot to the head. Ponero is the word that means what? Evil. He struck him with evil boils. Evil boils. Not I don't think you can say with sore boils, or even some translations say loathsome boils or something like that. Both in the Hebrew and the Greek, it just simply says the boils were what? You got to know this, by the way. Those sores that were on Job were evil sores. You'd want to know that. Why? Because that allows you to say that your bodily pain is evil. I'm not saying you're evil. I'm just saying if you're afflicted with pain, whether you know what the pain is from or not, or it's mysterious, that is an evil thing. It means it was not intended by God. It's an affliction of our sin and the devil that we suffer pain. That's the way the wording comes out here. He was struck with evil boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, from his foot to his head. And he took a potsherd, which is a chunk of pottery, I guess, and to scrape himself while he was sitting among the ashes. Okay, couple things. He's out in the ashes. What changed for Job here is he must have moved from inside the house to where? Outside. And there's a number of references as we read through this that Job is now not in the house anymore. Because of these sore boils or whatever, he leaves. Some of us have suggested that would imply that Job was afflicted with what disease? With maybe leprosy. I don't think that's the case. The Bible knows how to talk about leprosy. It doesn't say that here. But it might have been some kind of boil that people thought was contagious. You needed to be outside. You needed to be isolated. Something. It could just be that Job went out for grief and thought, I can't even go inside anymore. It's just whatever the case. But he's out in an ash heap where he can grab ashes and throw them up in the air, which is an indication also of his what? Of his grief. Of his misery and his grief. He's got a potsherd and scraping himself. Why is he doing that? I don't know. I don't know what the aim of doing that is. I know you're guessing what it is. I think it could be because he's itchy. He could itch with his fingers, but apparently that's whatever's on his skin is just so disgusting that he doesn't even want to touch what's on his skin. He uses some piece of pottery or something.
If you've ever had a skin allergy that is so bad and so broken out, you itch like crazy. You stand under the cold shower, anything.
So if you thought that what you were going through is bad, you can't ever say that it's worse than what Job went through. And I think that's probably the idea here. Thank you. Next, number 9. Then his wife said to him, do you have that verse in the Septuagint? Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. And then he responds to her. I want to pause a second. Well, no, let's keep reading. I want to read to you from verse 9 in the Septuagint because this is the first place, major, meaningful, I think, place where you got some additional content in the Septuagint that you don't have in the Hebrew version of the Bible. And I think it's significant. I think it's at least somewhat significant. And I want you to be familiar with it. We, about a month ago or something, went through what the Septuagint is. If you weren't here for that, you're lost on this right now. But I made the case at that time that I think it could be meaningful for us as Christians today to give more consideration to the Septuagint Greek translation of the Old Testament, more consideration than we have in the past, even potentially that Septuagint Greek translation is should be looked at by us as more authoritative even than the Hebrew text of the Bible. That's actually a shocking thing to say, but the first 3-4 generations of the Lord's church, including what seems to be the apostles in the Bible, the New Testament, gave more credibility to the Septuagint than they did to the Hebrew Masoretic text. My only point is that I just warned you beforehand that at times I'm going to be looking at the Greek translation and giving it consideration. So I want to do that. I think it's helpful to understand what Job's wife is going through. Before we talk about Job's wife's comment here, I want you to see how Job responds in verse 10 to what she said to him. He says to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity?" And in all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Now, he says, he references foolish women. Probably what he means by foolish women are unwise, foolish, unbelieving, ungodly women. And I think this is I probably think we need to take this, we need to understand Job's wife from the perspective of a really critical word that Job uses here. He says, "You are speaking as one of the foolish women." That is not the same as saying you're speaking, you are speaking you are a foolish woman. He doesn't say you are a foolish woman. Now, it sounds like what she's saying is really foolish. She says something like curse God or speak against him and then die, which I take to mean just give up the fight. Maybe even just go take your life. What's the point? That's foolish. But he doesn't say you are a foolish woman. He says you're speaking like one of the foolish women, which means he doesn't think what? She doesn't think she is a foolish woman. He thinks she's a Christian. And that she's saying things that later she is going to what? Regret and take back. There is a category of words, and you kind of, especially you type A personalities here, would want to really lock this in. There is a category of words that a person might say that should simply be what? Ignored. Like wind. Job later says, he likens words to wind. And if they're wind, what should we do with them? Try to grab a hold of them? No, just let them what? Just let them waft away. And I think that's what's going on here. That he's saying to her, oh, you don't want to say that, do you? Should we accept good from the Lord and not accept evil? I think he's being very patient with her, and the reason I think he's being very patient with her is why? Remember, you think she's a jerk because she says curse God and die. Just remember where she's at right now. You have to remember this woman. Job had 10 children. He didn't have 10 children all by himself, but with his wife who's now suffering the loss of all of her children. Job didn't just have all this wealth to himself. It was his and his wife. So she has suffered all of this loss too, and she's frustrated and probably angry and sad, and probably says things she's gonna regret. And I think that's what this is. The Septuagint expands on this. So I want to post it for you so that you can see it. The Septuagint extends verse 9 a lot. And here's what Job's wife, in fact, says to Job. This is all verse 9. It's a long verse. And when much time had passed, oh, interesting. Oh, and so we just learned from the Septuagint that the time that elapses from when Job is afflicted with these sores to when Job's wife comes to him and says this next is what? How much time? Much time. I take that to be more than a day, more than 2 days. I take that to mean months. Ugh. Which is rough to think about. So it's not just a little bit of time, it's a much time that's elapsed. We don't know that from the Hebrew, but get it from the Septuagint Greek translation. When much time had passed, his wife said to him, "How long wilt thou hold out, saying, Behold, I wait yet a little while, expecting the hope of my deliverance." Wow. So she says, why do you keep talking this way, Job? Why do you keep saying things like, and what is Job saying while he's in the middle of his suffering? I'm going to wait a little while, and I'm expecting the hope of my deliverance. He's not hopeless. His wife's hopeless, I think. She's lost her hope. Job is not. I'm going to wait some more. My deliverance is coming. She goes on, "For behold, thy memorial is abolished from the earth. Sons and daughters, the pangs and pains of my womb, which I bore in vain with sorrows." What's she talking about? Your entire memory, Job, is wiped away from the earth. Sons and daughters, the pangs and pains of my womb. All my kids are gone. She's lamenting, my children are gone. I lost where I'm at. My pains are, and thou thyself sittest down. Is this the version I sent you? Yeah. Okay. "And thou thyself sittest down to spend the nights in the open air among the corruption of worms." Yeah. Here outside, you're not under cover. "And I am a wanderer and a servant from place to place and house to house." Interesting. Job's wife was a very wealthy woman. Now what is she? She goes from house to house begging. "Can I do a little bit of laundry for you? To get some money?" Sheesh. "Waiting for the setting of the sun, that I may rest from my labors and my pangs which now beset me. But say some word against the Lord and die." Now, you don't have here, curse the Lord and die, but speak something against the Lord. It's not much better. I know. It's not as harsh as it. And then she challenges him and says, you ought to just take your life. There's a point, Job, where it just gets to be too much. And you should have alternatives in mind when it gets that bad. That you can tell from this that is an evil temptation. I didn't even think this didn't even occur to me, but that is the temptation. How many environments are we in today in this culture, especially Al Mohler was talking about Canada, which is basically just the culture of death now, not just for the young, but for the old. If you want to go have your life taken because it got hard for you, you can go up to Canada and just about, you don't have to do anything, and you can just die. But the culture today is saying to people who are suffering, what? Say something against God and die. It's not worth going on. Why would you suffer when you can just take the... And that is represented here as a brutal temptation of the devil, which should be resisted. Okay, my point there, that's a temptation. And Job recognizes it as an unbelieving temptation, but he does not accuse his wife, I think, of being an unbeliever, just sounding a lot like one in this instance. You sound like a lot like an unbeliever right now. But remember, wife, that, and by the way, she doesn't get sent away. They're going to have 10 more kids. You know, they do. So they're not super getting along right now. So that's another thing Job lost. He lost his children, and then he has a wife who's what? Estranged from him. Ugh, that's not helpful. But he recognizes it as a temptation, and then in verse 10 finally, and we'll be done here. Shall we indeed
includes his wife when he says, shall we, at least.
Oh yeah, I made a note here just for you guys who like to have fun with things. You speak as one of the foolish women. The Hebrew word there is the word Nabal. See, isn't that great? Now, do you know who I'm talking about? Yeah, this is one of my favorite characters in the Old Testament. That's the husband of Abigail. Yeah. And Abigail's one of our favorite women in the Bible because she's married to a guy named Nabal. And she says that time, you have to go easy on my husband because he is correctly named. It's so, oh man. Okay, you speak as one of the Nabal women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? Gracious. The word is not adversity. You know what the word is. Shall we accept good from God, and shall we not accept?
NIV says trouble.
Trouble, yeah. It's evil. Yeah, the NIV doesn't like that word evil. Ooh, I don't like that. I think God would send evil. Let's translate that differently. But it's evil. Yeah. So what Job is being afflicted with is evil things, and those are evil things which, by the strict sense of the text here, is given by God. So Job is able here again to say, we accept good things from God. He only wants good for us. Shall we not also receive from him even evil things? And then again, because that sounds wrong, the author again follows up and says, by the way, in all of this, Job did not sin with his lips. What he just said is not wrong. We should accept good from the Lord. We should also accept from him, even with thanksgiving, evil things as well. Because, and we'll just reemphasize this, the Lord has his good for us through Christ. If Christ stands with us, we have the hope of everlasting life. Then we can know in this brief life that whatever good he brings to us will be for our benefit, and whatever evil he brings to us, even when he doesn't tell us why, and he rarely does, even the evil that he delivers to us can only ever be for our benefit, because as a father, he doesn't deliver unto his children anything for their harm, even when it feels harmful. It's never for our harm. It's only ever for our ultimate good in the Lord Jesus Christ. And that's what Job is affirming here. It's just glorious. And again, I think the devil's listening and saying, remember the devil? And Job says, shall we not accept good from the Lord and not evil? And the devil goes, oh, that one works all the time. Suffering always works. And with Job, it didn't work. It's beautiful. Okay, I've gone late. I appreciate you letting me do that. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen.